BruCast is back, baby.
This BruCast episode is brought to you by the BruCast Store. Explore a store filled with awesome goodies from hoodies to t-shirts to mugs. We've got you covered. Stay in style with BruCast. Embrace the shock, set the trend. Visit now bru-cast.com/store. Link below. Alright, hi everyone, welcome back to another BruCast episode. If it's your first time watching the show, make sure to like and subscribe. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please rank the show 5 stars. This will ensure that the podcast is recommended to even more people and allow me to keep doing what I love. BruCast also on Instagram, X, and TikTok, where I upload shorts with the highlights of the show. So follow now, BruCast on Instagram, X, and TikTok. Links on the description below. Our guest today is Dr. Martin Moore-Ede. Dr. Martin Moore-Ede is a former Harvard Medical School professor and founder of Circadian. He revolutionized our understanding of circadian rhythms and the impact of light on health. His groundbreaking work led to the development of innovative lighting solutions that reduce health risks such as diabetes, heart disease, and cancer. All right, how are you doing, Dr. Martin?
Good to be with you, Bruno.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. Man, light is that impactful. I had no idea. That's so interesting.
We just take light for granted, don't we? I mean, we just presume if we need lights on, we flick a switch on the wall. We assume, the light from our screens we use every day. And we've really forgotten or really not aware of how essential it is to health. In fact, the light you see every day is as critical to your health and the type of light you see, as we'll discuss, as is the food you eat, the water you drink, or the air you breathe.
That's insane. People don't talk about that at all. I never
They
heard
don't. They don't realize it, and it's one of the most invasive and insidious of environmental pollutants. Light, electric light, particularly the light from the modern LEDs, and yet it is the simplest to fix. Just change the light bulb, as we'll talk about.
All right. So before we start talking about light and everything related to it, what about we start with a little bit about your background? So, as I understand, you were a former Harvard Medical School professor. So what work did you did there, and how this translated into your lighting discoveries?
Well, my career started, I was a surgeon in training and working 36-hour long shifts, 36 on, 12 off, 36 on, as a young surgeon in training. Okay. After finishing medical school, and I was working under bright blue-rich fluorescent lights, as back in the last century, as it were, when I was young, and I got really interested in the problem of circadian rhythms and the time of day and how sleep was controlled, and so I took a detour and went out of surgery to do a PhD at Harvard Medical School. PhD studying these circadian rhythms. That's the rhythms of the body that go up and down with the time of day. And in turn, that led me to join the faculty and lead a team of, a really top-rate team of people, postdocs and graduate students, and discover where the human circadian clock was, how it's controlled by light, and all the health consequences. And that came out of, the research we did at Harvard.
All right. So what is the circadian rhythm? Is that like a part of our brain? Like, is there like something in our brains that tell us? I don't understand it. What is it?
Let's go in the basics. A circadian rhythm is something in the body that changes with the time of day. And virtually everything in the body does change. So, for example, we have melatonin as a hormone that comes out and produced at night, peaks about 2 o'clock in the morning when we're asleep. Cortisol is a hormone that has a circadian rhythm that peaks around dawn. It's involved in waking us up. Body temperature is high during the day and reaches a trough around 3 or 4 in the morning, early hours of the morning. So everything's going up and down according to the time of day. And that turns out not to be a function of the day-night cycle around us. It's actually driven by whole millions of clocks in the body, but with one master clock in the brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus. So we got a clock in the brain, a tiny little cluster of cells in the hypothalamus and one of the older parts of the brain, which is linked to the eyes so that it detects whether it's day or night, but it itself measures time, even if you didn't know what day or night was. And it's that clock that normally is synchronized by bright daylight, bright blue rich daylight, and is enabled to be stable when it is sees just darkness at night, so the body can actually detect the systems in the body, in the eyes, that detect whether it's how much blue there is in the light that you see. So that system is an ancient system. It's found all the way through the animal kingdom and plants and everything else. And it's absolutely fundamental for timing us with the natural day-night cycle outside. In other words, our bodies, when they work well, march in step. The trouble is we've invented electric light, and now we've really screwed up all the signals. We also stay indoors during the day, so we don't see the bright daylight. We stay indoors during the evening hours, and this time we switch on our lights, and that is telling our brains that it's still daytime. And many of us, 40-50% of people, sleep in the dark with some lights sleep at night with some lights in the bedroom. So we are really messing up our circadian timing system, and there's a lot of serious health problems that result from that messing up of the natural cycle.
I see. I found interesting that you mentioned like it's throughout the whole animal kingdom, because yesterday while I was watching a couple of your videos on YouTube, I started thinking about my plants, because I have a lot of plants here at home, and some of them, they require a certain amount of light, and if they don't have the certain time exposure, a certain amount of time exposure during the day, and then during like no light during the night, like, they don't grow well, like they get so clunky and they die, like, so even the plants have it. I'm amazed. That's so interesting.
Yeah, actually, the first discovery of these circadian rhythms was done in a plant that opened its leaves during the day and closed them at night. And when you put it in a cupboard in a basement, this is done 300 years ago by a guy called Demarian in France. He peeked in and he found the leaves were continuing to open and close, even though the plant was in, a room with couldn't see light and dark, but it was drifting away from the 24-hour cycle. So the internal clock still works in the absence of daylight and night, but and that's what synchronizes us normally. So if we put people, as we've done in our studies, in rooms with no windows, no clocks, nothing to tell them the time of day, their circadian rhythms will drift about an hour a day later. In other words, they'd be living on a 25-hour day without realizing it. In other words, the rhythms and the clocks keep on going on a regular cycle.
Yeah, for sure. And then we invented smartphones. Which is basically blasting blue light into your eyes. Like some people spend 9 hours per day in their phones. I cannot even imagine how much that messes the whole thing up.
Yeah, we've really messed it up. And the evidence is it doesn't take very much of the wrong type of light at the wrong time to cause a lot of serious illness. So the people who see the most outdoor light, daylight, get outside most, actually suffer fewer diseases, and they live longer, years longer, than people who never get outside or very rarely get outside and are always indoors. Similarly, people who leave the lights on in the bedroom at night have much higher rates of heart disease and diabetes and cancer than those who sleep in the dark. So it's really fundamental, the light that you're exposed to.
Oh man, I only hope that a couple of my programmers friends listen to this episode because coders, I don't know how close you are to coders and programmers. They love to stay in the dark. They close all the blinds. When I was at university, like we had the coders room, like it's famous. They would just go in there and it's like they we used to joke like they're a little bit like vampires, like because they need to concentrate, they need to focus. That's the point. But yeah.
Yeah, I did a little coding back in my day.
Yeah.
I was working a great college summer job working for NASA. This is actually before the moon landing. And I was coding the program to decide how the blood flow would go in the lung with the astronauts. So, but that was on a very different scale. That was these large scale computers and paper ribbon and all sorts of stuff. Nothing like obviously the computers of today.
Wait a second, Dr. Martin, do you work for NASA?
Yep,
What?
way back, way back, way back. Yeah, I was in medical school and I had a summer and I went out to Stanford, got a fellowship, and worked at NASA Ames. Yeah, yeah, and that was in 1968. So it's just the year before the moon landing.
That's
So
incredible. Did you have any influence in the moon landing project, in the Apollo missions?
yeah, I wrote the computer program that looked at the blood flow in the lung of the astronauts. That was my summer project. And in one, the moon has 1/3 gravity. Anyway, that's a long time
Yeah.
ago.
Okay. Going back to light. I have so before I move on, I have a question regarding the light in the bedroom. My girlfriend, she loves to sleep with the light. So the question would be, how much light in the bedroom would be detrimental to your health? Because sometimes I sleep with my girlfriend and have the lights is just it's like 10% on. Like you can select the percentage on the app, and it just leave very very low. It would be that detrimental to your health.
Well, actually, a recent paper has just come out showing that it takes very little light in the bedroom to have an adverse effect. For example, there was a study done in England with 85,000 people who wore light sensors 24/7, and they figured out how much light they saw during the day and how much light was in the bedroom at night when they slept. And when they looked at the people who were sleeping with lights on the bedroom, even small amounts of light, they had a lot more diabetes in that population than the people who slept in the dark. And it only took candlelight levels of light to do it, very, very low levels of light. So, yeah, we're amazingly sensitive to light at night. And I've just posted out on in my newsletter an article about that. I have a Substack where I wrote an article for that. So, but yeah, no, it's incredibly sensitive, and it's the dosage that it doesn't take much light to have a negative effect.
That's I'm mind blown right now. So whew. So we talk about diabetes, right? Heart
Yeah.
disease. What else does it impact?
Well, it impacts breast cancer. We know that, in fact, the evidence really suggests that half the cases of breast cancer in the world are probably related to light exposure at the wrong time. And I don't say that lightly, because if you look at women who've never seen electric lights, right, either before the invention of electric light when breast cancer was very rare, or in places in Africa where they have no electricity yet, so they never see electric light at night, or very interestingly, blind women who've been blind since an early age, all of them have very low rates of breast cancer. So the rate is like 20 women per 100,000, 20 cases per 100,000 women if you don't have electric light. It's about 120 cases per 100,000 women, about five times higher when women are exposed to light. So that's a pretty big finding. We know why, because what the lights is doing is suppressing particularly blue-rich light, suppressing the melatonin production. And melatonin is our anti-cancer hormone that suppresses cancer in the body. And so if the melatonin is shut off, then in fact the cancer cells grow. So yeah, and prostate cancer in men, similarly. Colorectal cancer is another one. So some of these cancers that are growing very rapidly now, the rates of breast cancer, prostate cancer, colorectal cancer are climbing quite rapidly now. And that's because we're using lights with more and more blue in them with the modern LED lights.
Damn. So cancer. All right. So so when you say like like blue rich lights,
Yeah.
it means that we could just use warmer tones of light and solve the whole issue, right? Seems like
It's not so much warmer tones, but you can remove blue out of light. So just as a basic primer, right? The light you see, whether it's from the sun or from electric light, it's whitish, yellowish color. That's actually not the color of the light that's entering our eyes.
oh.
The light that's entering our eyes is comprised of all the colors of the rainbow. It's got violet in it, it's got blue wavelengths, it's got green, yellow, orange, red wavelengths, right? They're all coming in. It's your brain that merges that together to make it white. So it's not, you don't see white light. The sun doesn't emit white light. Electric lights don't emit white light. They emit this wide range of different colors. So what matters is the composition or the content of those colors. And those different colors have quite different biological effects. So violet light, the violet wavelengths, kill bacteria. They can be used for sterilizing rooms and so forth. Blue wavelengths, up in the sky blue range, a certain type of blue, are the ones that reset the circadian clock. That's because we've got a photopigment in some cells of the back, retinal ganglion cells in the back of our eyes that are blue light detectors. And that is the signal that determines whether it's day or night. That's what we read, how much blue there is. Green light actually it can be used to treat and effectively people with pain and migraines and things like that. Green light is curative of that. The red wavelengths are highly effective at healing. Scars healing better, hair grows on your head, everything else under the red wavelengths. So when we go outside in natural daylight, we're getting all the colors of the rainbow, right? And we're getting them in pretty high intensity. And that's the healthy light we should be seeing during the day. But indoors, it depends on how you make the light, depending on which wavelengths it produces. So you can, and the answer is if you develop light sources that are blue rich during the day and are zero blue at night, you can fix this problem because then you're giving the body the correct signals. Blue on, blue off signal. That's so critical for the circadian clock.
Okay, so we need a wide range of wavelengths of different colors of lights in order to be healthy, and the sun provides all of that. So let me play devil's advocate for a second. When I come home and I sit in front of my TV on my computer, I put a YouTube video on. I have all types of color on this YouTube video. You know what I mean? Like, so why I'm not getting all of those colors from a monitor or my phone screen? They can get.
You're getting the colors. You see the visual thing, your visual experience. When you look at a light, you can't tell how much blue is in it, right? Now you can see, yes, so you can see if you're looking at a blue screen, the classic Microsoft blue screen. Yes, you're getting, more blue than other colors in it, but you can't tell the colors just by looking at it. But essentially, the lights you see indoors are much dimmer than the lights you see outside. But what's critical is, even if light looks white, how much blue does it have in it is the critical thing. And you can't see that just with the human eye.
Is there a device or anything that I could use indoors in order to determine how much blue is in the light?
Absolutely, yeah. There are a device called a spectrophotometer There's a handheld device which you can use, and those spectrophotometers can be used just to see if I've got one here. About the size of an iPhone, and I can simply point it at a light. Right, this thing pointed at a light, and it will give me the full wavelengths of that light. So that's the technical way you can do it with these devices. You can also use refracting eyewear that does it too. So basically, that's and if you just take one of these things and point it at a light source, then you can see. If you can see in your color, can you see in your camera?
Yes, I can.
You can see the composition of that light I just pointed at.
So there's a chart. Just going to describe for the listeners. There's a chart. One second. There's a lot of blue, and then it sinks, and then the yellow part starts very low and go high, go high, go high, go high, and at the top there's red again, and then it starts going down again.
That's right. So in other words, you can see the whole pattern of what the composition of light is when you do that. That's right.
Okay, so you do have blue in there. Is not that?
This has blue, yeah, because this is I just pointed at an LED source, and it has a big blue spike in that light color. So that's what we just saw then, and that light's fine during the daytime. What you don't want to see is any blue when you're during the nighttime hours.
So what time is it?
Oh, it's 12:30, just past noon.
Oh, so it's fine. Everything's fine right now.
It's good. This is great. But you're right now in the evening hours, right? When you're recording here.
Yeah.
When you're recording.
Here's 6:30.
Yeah, right.
So what do you think Apple is aware of any of this? Because they just released this Apple Vision Pro, which is basically like those two 4K monitors is like you're basically gluing them into your eyes.
Yeah. Well, they try to do something nominally. You see, one of the things that people do is change what's called the color temperature of the light, but that actually doesn't really fix it. I mean, it gives the appearance, a bit of a placebo they do. So Apple has a night version, right? I can't remember what they call it exactly, but they have a night mode, and the screen looks yellow. It does reduce the amount of blue, but there's still blue in it because they're not actually fixing the problem. Now, there are now screens coming out that do solve this problem, which is encouraging. So that's imminently coming out. But the screens today do emit a lot of blue.
Okay. Yeah, I forgot how this thing from Apple is called as well, but I try to use it sometimes. The problem is that I'm also an artist, so I also need to paint a lot for the games I develop, and
right.
and by using this mode, everything just kind of gets yellowish. I just can't work, unfortunately. That's one of the downsides.
Yellow.
Yeah,
that's right.
It's one of the downsides for sure. Okay, so we talked about the impact of blue light on circadian rhythms and overall health. A lot of negative healths, right? Negative impacts on your health. You can develop breast cancer, prostate cancer, diabetes. I mean, nothing good comes from it. And so what can people do in order to prevent that? So I would say first one, turn off all the lights when you go to bed, right?
That's right. Sleep in the dark. That's good. In other words, use light-proof curtains so that you don't have street lights coming in through the windows, and switch off the lights in the bedroom at night. Get out in the morning to get exposed to a good dose of natural daylight or sunlight in the morning. And why I say the morning, by the way, it's interesting. One of the side effects is when people have too much light during the nighttime and too little during the day, is there's more depression, anxiety, more psychiatric illness occurs. And fascinating studies looking at patients admitted to hospital for severe depression and other psychiatric disorders. And one half of them are in rooms facing in a hospital wing, facing south and east, so they get the morning sunlight. and the other half of the people on the same hospital ward floor are getting windows facing north and east, and so they don't get the morning sunlight. And guess what? The patients with the same treatment, same doctors, same therapy, same drugs, get out of hospital in half the time when they have exposure to morning sunlight. Very critical.
No
So
way.
morning sunlight is really critical in terms of your mental health, but also your physical health. And so really the rule is get out every morning outside and take a walk, run, whatever you do. Even sitting outside on the deck or patio is just fine.
That's insane. Half of the time they get out of the hospital.
Correct.
Isn't like in Sweden, Finland, those countries where like half of the year it's super dark and the other half of the year is like super bright. Don't they have like high risks of depression as far as
Yes, they do. Yeah, they do. Yeah, no, there is a significant problem with when you live too far north, above about 50, above about 55 north um, latitude, then in fact it's much harder. And so then you really want to be able to control the very critical then if you live in a northerly latitude to control the bedroom, like, darken the bedroom and make sure you got really super blackout shades and so forth.
is there anything else that they can do, or can they? I mean, they cannot stay on antidepressants their whole life, right?
Right. Well, it's sort of it's harder, and it has more disruptive effects on circadian rhythms if you're up especially above the Arctic Circle. Um, so that's very disruptive. So normally most of us are in more moderate latitudes, and so we can we have seasons of the year, but nothing too extreme. But that's one of the things that's really critical, just managing that light. And I think, we know that young girls start their puberty and the menstruating earlier, much years earlier these days than they used to. We think that's something to do with the light exposure they're getting, artificial light exposure. The world's a very different place before the electric light was developed. And the first electric lights didn't have very much blue in them, the ones that Edison invented. And it's only when we got into about the 1960s and 70s that the fluorescent lights came along, and they have a lot of blue in them. And then, of course, now we've got the LEDs. By about 2014, the LEDs first came along, and which are based on a blue pump technology. That's the most efficient way to convert electrical energy into light, is to use an LED chip that produces blue light. And then you coat the LED with some phosphors that spread out, and you get other colors of the rainbow in the light. But basically, the blue is the predominant color in most efficient LEDs.
And let me guess, they did it to make it cheaper, right? To reduce the costs.
They did save a few cents on your utility bill, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and and the problem is, just to really illustrate the problem, the measurement that they use to judge whether a light is efficient or not is a measure called lumens. Now, lumens is a measure of brightness, but it's only measuring the green and yellow parts of the color spectrum. It doesn't measure the blue, which is critical for circadian health, and it doesn't measure the red, which is very essential for healing properties of light. So they're really measuring the brightness of light. So basically what people are producing is what I like to call it's like junk light, just like junk food. It may look bright and attractive, but it is not healthy to use. And that's what we're doing, because they're maximizing, and the rules and the regulations are maximizing the lumens per watt, which is really mean, how cheap can we make brightness is what it is, not not how do we make healthy light, which is a very different question.
Damn. Have you seen this picture from Berlin from above, where they compare the lights from each side?
Yes, I think you mean when they changed the street lights to LEDs, and is that the one you're talking about?
So I'm talking. So Berlin was divided for many years, right? So because of the wall, and because of all the technology that they use for the light bulbs on the streets between each side was different. I think. And I think to this day, if you take a picture from space from Berlin, you can you can still see the difference of light tones from one side to the other. The one that had the wall around, I forgot if it was east or west. They kept
East Berlin, East
east.
Berlin, yeah.
They kept all the warm lights, and the West Berlin that was more advanced. They moved on to the LOD or phosphorescent light, so they had like this more blue hue. And it's fascinating how can you see from space the difference still there to this day. I don't know why.
Right. No, that's there are a lot of those aerial photographs are quite striking,
Yeah.
and that gets into another topic, which is huge effects on plants and animals. Our use of these electric lights are highly damaging, and it's sort of reducing populations of, insects and birds and everything else as a result of using these bright outdoor lighting.
That's extremely interesting and concerning that it's not more well known. When did this research and understanding on healthy light and junky fast food light? How'd you say that again? Fast food light, junk
Oh,
light.
yeah, or junk light, whatever. Fast food light.
Junk
Yeah.
light. When this understanding came to be, when people started doing research on it, were you the first one?
Well, yeah, and with others, of course, around the
Okay.
world, there are a lot of scientists working on this problem. The problem, the scientists know all about it, and the science is very well established. The challenge is that the general public just not aware of this, and this is one of the real problems we face. But this has been, the real breakthroughs have occurred in the last 15 years with this, in terms of the type of light. We were able to identify about 10 years ago now the precise wavelengths that matter. In other words, the narrow band of blue wavelengths that's causing the problem. We know the receptors in the eye that detect blue have been identified. So all this research has been coming together, but I think at the same time, there's been this big push for energy efficiency because of obviously concerns about global warming and climate change. The trouble is the people who are doing that do not understand the health impact. So what we're doing is creating unhealthy light in order to solve a global problem. And we're going to have far worse health problems than we would ever have, because we're just not ignoring the healthy properties, what makes healthy light and what makes unhealthy light. So that's a big problem now, and that's a part of a wide education. In fact, as you know, I've written a book called The Light Doctor, which talks about all this science and how it's come together. It just is out now on Amazon, and explains the science, explains what the solutions are, and explains the research, but does it for a general audience. So that's somewhere I think your audience should like to look at. It's available on Amazon, as I say. The Light Doctor by Martin Moore-Ede. That's me.
Of course, we're gonna make sure to leave the link on the description below. So the Light Doctor, using light to boost health, improve sleep, and live longer. So
That's right.
when did it came out?
It just came out this month.
This month. It's brand new. All right. So I'm happy that I'm helping promote it. I really think change takes time, right? And first need to spread awareness. And man, it's fascinating. Why you're talking about how people are trying to solve the world climate change by pushing like LED lights and those unhealthy lights. You know what I remember? You know those cartoons where like there's several water holes on the wall, and they put one finger there, and then they put one other finger there, and they try to close all the fingers, but there's more, always more popping up. It's that's how it feels like. We as a society, like, always trying to solve one problem. There's 10 other more that shows up.
Yeah, you create more problems sometimes when you're trying to solve an original problem. That's exactly right.
Yeah. All right. So you have your book that it came out recently, The Light Doctor. But you also are a founder. You founded Circadian. Am I right?
Right. The When I was at Harvard, we identified where the circadian clock was in the human brain, and we figured out how it was synchronized by light, and that gave us a lot of insights as to what happens to people who are working shifts around the clock, working 24/7 schedules. And so we got a lot of inquiries from industry. And so we formed a company called Circadian. Um, and that's been in business now for 40 years. We have offices around the world in Australia, Japan, Amsterdam, London, elsewhere, Australia. Um, and so we've got to do a lot of work in terms of how do you safely work and healthily work 24/7 schedules in industry. So that was Circadian. And then I spun off out of Circadian a company called Circadian Light or Circadian Zirclight to develop these new technologies. And we have a Circadian Light Research Center, which is developing the research on this and identifying what is healthy light and how to produce it and everything else. So, but that's what I've been involved in really throughout my whole career.
Got it. So when you mention like individuals work 24 hours around the clock, like how? Because I mean, they need to sleep at some point. What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, individuals may not. I used to work 36-hour shifts as a young doctor. Crazy.
What?
Yeah, it's crazy, but they did. But no, normally people are working 8 or 12-hour shifts and then rotating around, and so they will work several 12s or several 8s, and then they'll shift to a different time of day, and their lifestyle is always changing. It's like constant jet lag when they're working those sort of schedules. Um, so yeah, we work with companies all over the world addressing those problems.
I mean, I guess if you're working more than 24 hours, like shifts more than 24 hours, I guess at some point doesn't even matter what type of light you have. This is going to dysregulate a lot of things, like, right?
It
It's
caused,
even,
well, it caused a lot of disruption. I mean, typically,
yeah.
as I say, they're not working more than about 12 hours at a time. But the issue is we found that when we put in lights that are very low in blue content during the nighttime and high blue at night, those shift workers do much better. They sleep better, they're healthier. Um, what we're doing is maintaining the natural day-night cycle, even though they're working at different hours. The body clock is being kept in sync with the regular day-night schedule.
Oh, okay, okay. So you're kind of faking it,
Yeah,
tricking the body.
we're keeping the body synced, even though the hours of work may be at different hours of day and night.
Oh, now I got it. That's clever. Okay. Okay, that's very interesting. So I saw on your profile you also had this link to a news to some news called like banned in the USA healthy light bulbs. New DOA energy rules strongly favor bright blue pump LEDs, LODs, and ignore health concerns. Could you talk more about it?
Yeah, that's been another part of it.
Okay.
So as I say, the lights in the old day. Well, first of all, let's go back to the
Yeah.
early human history. The only light our ancestors saw for 10,000 generations was beside the natural light. They had wood fires, and then they invented thousands of years ago candles. But the wood fires and candles have virtually no blue in them, so they're not a problem at all. You can use them in the evening without giving the blue signal. Um, It's Thomas Edison, when he invented the light bulb, um, that was in 1880, and that's when he introduced something that looked a bit like candlelight, because that's what people were used to. Um, and that light bulb had about 4% blue in it. But now the modern LEDs have 15 to 20% blue in them, way more blue, and that's what's causing a lot of the problems with the modern LEDs.
Got it. Okay. So let's try to summarize the whole conversation so far. If I want to improve my life, improve my sleep, decrease the chances of developing cancer or diabetes, the steps that I need to take are: one, sleep in completely darkness. That would be the first step that I could take in order to improve my life. Two, go out every morning early for a walk to get sunlight exposure, because I need all those wavelengths that are beneficial to me, not only blue but red, purple, like all in between. Let's see what else. Um, Avoid blue light in the evening, of course.
And you can get lights in the evening that are sort of essentially zero blue. They have the other colors in them, but they have the blue has been taken out.
Oh, really?
So
Is that a thing?
yeah,
Okay.
so that's and those are some of the lights I invented and patented that do that.
Okay, so how can we look for it?
Well, I mean, one of the companies that sells it is a company called SORAA, SORAA. Um,
SORAA.
and so, yeah. So SORAA is, has got these light bulbs. And it's called, look, if it was SORAA Zero Blue, you'll see them.
Technology. Oh, SORAA Zero Blue. Okay.
Zero Blue, right?
SORAA Zero Blue.
And, light bulbs that now have no blue in their spectrum, right? They're free of blue.
All right, so you're behind this technology. You helped
Yeah,
them develop.
right.
All right.
That's right. Yeah.
Introducing SORAA Zero Blue, the world's first blue-free lamp portfolio design with proprietary Zero Blue technology. But that's amazing. Supporting sleep with SORAA Zero Blue technology. We designed SORAA Zero Blue lamps with our groundbreaking Zero Blue technology to help people enjoy the sleep they need and deserve. Blue free spectrum reduces melanopic lumens by around 40% compared to conventional LODs. Okay, so we even have the spectrum here.
So you can see there's lights got either they've got blue in or don't have blue in them. So yeah, that's right. It's the blue part of it that you have to control. Yeah.
So, Dr. Martin, from what I see, we have all the solutions. We have everything we need in our hands. We just need to take action. I mean, spread awareness, understand more about the problem, and take action.
Exactly right. I mean, as I say, that's why I wrote the book. It's for. It's written for non-scientists to really explain this and to understand the lights you need to ask for and find, because over 99% of the lights sold today are these what I call junk blue lights, blue-rich lights, that are really quite unhealthy when you use them at night. And it's not just me, by the way. I led a panel of almost 250 scientists last year that came out with this conclusion that these LED lights, standard LED lights, should carry a warning label that says may be harmful if used at night.
Really?
That's not me. That's 250 of the world's leading scientists who've been working on circadian rhythms and light.
Let's go to the other extreme. Would it be healthy to work the whole day under the sun, maybe with some protection, of course, but under the sun, maybe with some shade, but more outside? Would that be healthy?
Well, here's the story. I mean, there's a fascinating study. I mean, one of the risks you have when you're outside and you've got a lot of skin exposed is you have more risk of skin cancers and melanomas and things like that, right? And so, and that's always been a big concern. And dermatologists always warn you about sunscreen and not getting too much sun. Um, so a big study was done in Sweden with 29,000 Swedish women, and they tracked how much light, how much daylight, who saw the most sunlight, and who was indoors most of the time. And they found a huge effect of people in sunlight. Now, the people in sunlight did get more skin cancers, but they lived much longer than the people who never saw sunlight. So there's again a warning to those coders out there, right? You know, you're not doing your health much good. Um, and but basically, uh, big effect. So, then studying the U.S. Navy. In the U.S. Navy, the sailors are getting obviously a lot of sunlight because they're out there on the deck working the ship, and they were getting more cancers, but they were also living longer too than the average population.
That's
So they
kind of
just daylight.
that's a little bit paradoxical, right? So you live longer, but you also live longer with cancer. So
Except the cancers actually don't progress nearly as much. Actually, you may develop a cancer, but it doesn't kill you.
I'm not sure if that's a good thing. It's a good plan.
Well, the right answer is you don't want to be out there in sun swimming trunks, right, or
Mm,
bathing suit, right? Getting them that amount of sunlight in your skin that can cause problems. Um, but this light we're talking about is what comes in through the eyes that matters.
mm.
So you can be fully clothed and go outside, and as long as you got the sunlight coming in through your eyes, that's when you get the beneficial effect.
So the circadian rhythm is only influenced by the lights that come through your eyes, not through your
That's right.
skin. Okay. Ah, okay. That makes sense now. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, that's
Um, why we're talking about sun exposure, I remember this famous picture I saw a couple of years ago about this truck driver. If I'm not mistaken, he was a Brazilian truck driver, and he worked as a truck driver his whole life. With that said, what that means that throughout his whole life, for many hours per day, he would just have like one side of his body and his face exposed to the left window, right, to the window on his left side. And he took this picture. I was like amazed. And you could see like just half of his face and just his left arm were like like way older than the right one, the right face, the right side of the face, and the right. It looked like he was like 20 years or 30 years older in one side of his body compared to the other. That's crazy.
right. That's really interesting.
Yeah. All right. So we talked about your book. We talked about your company, Circadian. But you also have a YouTube channel, right?
I do. Yep.
Would you like to talk a little bit more about it? So,
Well, I've got a variety of videos I've been doing, posting up there. I've also got Instagram and LinkedIn and other social media channels. So that's all part of the educating people about light. Um, that's what I've been really doing here. And the real message is, the science is really good enough now that we know what we need to do. The problem is that people are just not aware, and
yeah,
that's why I'm using the book, The Light Doctor, and other social media channels in order to deal with that.
perfect. Dr. Martin, I don't have any more questions. Do you have any final remarks? Anything else that you'd like to say?
No, thank you. It's been a good conversation, far-ranging conversation, and yeah, no, as I say, encourage people to look at the Light Doctor, look at my newsletters like in Substack and Psychology Today that I produce that really add more information. But the key is getting the message out there. And one reason I wrote the book is so it can be shared as a paperback book, can be shared with your boss if you're trying to get the lights at work changed. If you work in a hospital, work in a senior living center, work in a factory, trying to get healthy lights, and your family and friends. So, as I say, that's why the book is available to try to educate the world about the importance of healthy light. It's critically important to our health, and it's so easy to fix. But most people are totally unaware.
Yeah. Perfect. I'm happy to be helping spreading the message. All right, Dr. Martin, it was an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much. Yeah. So if it's your first time watching the show, make sure to like and subscribe. If you're still listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, make sure to rank the show 5 stars. This will ensure that the podcast will be recommended to even more people and allow me to keep doing what I love. Check out now the BruCast store, Explorer store, filled with awesome goodies from hoodies to t-shirts to mugs. We've got you covered. Stay in style with BruCast. Embrace the shock, set the trend. Buy now at brew-cast.com/store. I repeat, brew-cast.com/store. Link on the description below. BruCast also on Instagram, X, and TikTok, where we upload shorts with the highlights of the show. So follow now, BruCast on Instagram, X, and TikTok. Links below. All right, everyone. Thanks so much. Dr. Martin, again, was a pleasure. Thank you so much. And see you next time, everyone. Bye-bye. All right.